Welcome to Tales by Felix, where every story unlocks a new world. Remember to subscribe, like and share. Let's begin. The sun dipped low over the haven, casting a golden glow across the rolling fields of wildflowers and the weathered red barn that stood as the heart of the farm. Ethan Caldwell knelt in the dirt, his hands caked with earth as he pulled carrots from the garden. His flannel shirt clung to his broad shoulders, damp with the sweat of a long day's work. At 38, his face bore the lines of a man who had weathered storms, but his hazel eyes still sparkled with quiet determination. "Dad, Finn's chasing me again." Maya's voice, high and giggling, cut through the evening air. The 6-year-old darted across the field, her pigtails bouncing, a smudge of dirt on her cheek. Behind her, 10-year-old Finn sprinted, his lanky frame all elbows and knees, a mischievous grin plastered across his face. "Finn, give her a break," Ethan called, standing and brushing his hands on his jeans. He couldn't help but smile as Maya ducked behind a hay bale, sticking out her tongue at her brother. "Leo, help!" Maya squealed, spotting her eldest brother lounging on the porch with a book. At 14, Leo was quieter than his siblings, his dark hair falling into his eyes as he glanced up, unimpressed. "You're on your own, Squirt," Leo said, his voice soft but teasing. He turned a page, but his lips twitched into a half-smile. Ethan shook his head, chuckling. This was their life now, messy, loud, and full of love. The haven had given them that. After Clara left 7 years ago, leaving Ethan with 3 kids and a heart full of questions, he'd been a wreck. But Eleanor, the farm's wise and weathered owner, had taken them in, offering not just a home but a purpose. The haven was a sanctuary for those rebuilding their lives, families, wanderers, anyone needing a second chance. For Ethan, it was salvation. Inside the farmhouse, the kitchen smelled of fresh bread and rosemary. Ethan carried a basket of carrots to the counter, where Maya was now perched, swinging her legs. Finn hovered nearby, sneaking a slice of apple from a bowl. "Dad, can we have a bonfire tonight?" Finn asked, his eyes bright with the kind of enthusiasm only a kid could muster. "Maybe," Ethan said, ruffling Finn's hair. "If you help with dishes." Finn groaned dramatically, flopping onto a chair. "You're the worst." Maya giggled, then hopped down, tugging at Ethan's sleeve. "Can I look at the pictures again?" Ethan's smile faltered, just for a second. The pictures meant the old photo album, tucked away in a drawer. It was full of memories, some warm, some jagged. He didn't like revisiting them, but Maya's wide, hopeful eyes were hard to resist. "All right, Bug," he said, retrieving the album from the living room. He set it on the table, and Maya flipped it open, her small fingers tracing the edges of a photo, Ethan and the kids at a county fair years ago. Clara's absence was a silent presence in every frame. "Who's that?" Maya asked, pointing to a faded picture of a woman with auburn hair, laughing in a field. Ethan's chest tightened. He hadn't realized that photo was still in there. "Just someone we knew," he said, his voice low. Leo, who'd wandered in, glanced at the photo and quickly looked away, his jaw tight. "Looks like Mom," Maya said innocently, and the room went quiet. Finn stopped chewing his apple. Ethan forced a smile. "Let's pick a different page," he suggested, turning to a photo of the kids building a snowman. But the moment lingered, a ghost stirring in the air. The haven was more than a farm. It was a living, breathing promise of renewal. Its fields stretched wide, dotted with vegetable patches, fruit trees, and a small herd of goats that Finn insisted on naming after superheroes. The farmhouse, with its creaky floors and mismatched furniture, hummed with life. Residents, some temporary, some permanent, worked the land, shared meals, and found solace in routine. Eleanor, the 70-year-old matriarch, was its soul. Ethan stood on the porch the next morning, coffee mug in hand, watching the sunrise paint the sky pink. Eleanor joined him, her silver hair pulled into a loose bun, her eyes sharp despite the lines etched around them. "You're up early," she said, her voice warm but probing. "Something on your mind?" Ethan shrugged, sipping his coffee. "Just the usual. Kids, crops, keeping this place running." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "You're a terrible liar, Ethan Caldwell." He laughed, but it was strained. The photo from last night had rattled him more than he'd admit. "Just thinking about the past, I guess." Eleanor nodded, her gaze drifting to the fields. The past is a stubborn thing. It likes to knock when you least expect it. Before Ethan could respond, Finn burst onto the porch, a soccer ball under his arm. Dad, come play. Leo's being boring again. Leo's always boring, Maya piped up, trailing behind with a daisy tucked behind her ear. I am not. Leo called from the yard, where he was helping a resident repair a fence. His tone was light, but Ethan caught the shadow in his son's eyes, the same one from last night. Eleanor clapped her hands. All right, you rascals. Let's get to work before play. Finn, you're on goat duty. Maya, help me in the kitchen. Ethan, check the irrigation lines. The day unfolded in a rhythm of labor and laughter. Ethan fixed a leaky pipe, Finn chased a goat named Thor, and Maya proudly presented a lopsided pie to Eleanor. At lunch, the communal table buzzed with chatter. A young couple, new to the haven, shared stories of their travels, while an older man named Tom recounted a fishing tale that had everyone laughing. This place, Tom said, raising his glass of lemonade, it's magic. You all saved me. Ethan smiled, but his thoughts drifted. The haven was magic, but it was also fragile. He'd built this life for his kids, but the ghost of Clara lingered, threatening to unravel it all. Olivia Harper arrived at the haven like a burst of sunlight. A volunteer who'd joined a year ago, she was 29, with warm brown eyes and a laugh that made the kids light up. She taught art classes, helped with harvests, and had a knack for knowing when someone needed a kind word. Ethan hadn't meant to fall for her, but her steady presence had worn down his walls. That afternoon, Olivia was in the barn, setting up easels for the kids' art class. Ethan lingered at the door, watching her arrange paintbrushes with care. You're staring, Olivia said without looking up, a playful smile in her voice. I am not, Ethan shot back, but he grinned, leaning against the doorframe. Just making sure you're not teaching them to paint my face on a pumpkin again. That was Finn's idea, Olivia laughed, finally meeting his gaze. Her eyes softened. You okay? You seem distant today. Ethan hesitated. He wanted to tell her about the photo, about the unease creeping into his chest, but the words stuck. Just tired, he said instead. Olivia nodded, not pushing. Well, if you need to talk, I'm here. Or I can just distract you with terrible puns. Puns are dangerous, Ethan teased, stepping closer. Their banter was easy, but there was a warmth beneath it, a promise of something deeper. The kids barreled in, breaking the moment. Olivia, can we paint dragons? Finn asked, already grabbing a brush. Only if Maya paints a unicorn, Olivia replied, winking at the little girl. Maya clapped her hands. Deal. Leo hung back, sketching quietly in a corner. Olivia noticed, crouching beside him. That's a great tree, Leo. Wanna add some color? Leo shrugged, his pencil pausing. Maybe later. Olivia didn't press, but she gave his shoulder a gentle squeeze. Ethan watched, his heart swelling. Olivia wasn't just good for him, she was good for his kids. For the first time in years, he felt like he could breathe. That evening, as they walked back to the farmhouse, Olivia slipped her hand into his. You're doing a great job, you know, she said softly. Those kids are lucky to have you. Ethan squeezed her hand, the weight of the past momentarily forgotten. But deep down, he knew peace was a fragile thing. The next few days were deceptively calm. The haven hummed with its usual rhythm, but small, unsettling moments began to creep in. At breakfast, Maya hummed a lullaby Ethan hadn't heard in years, one Clara used to sing. He brushed it off, assuming she'd heard it from someone else, but the melody lingered in his mind like an unwelcome guest. Later, while cleaning the attic with Finn, Ethan found a small, forgotten toy, a wooden horse Clara had carved for Leo when he was a toddler. Finn picked it up, frowning. Where'd this come from? Not sure, Ethan lied, tucking it into his pocket. His pulse quickened. The toy felt like a message, though from whom, he couldn't say. That night, Leo sat on the porch, staring at the stars. Ethan joined him, sensing his son's unease. You okay, buddy? Leo nodded, but his voice was tight. I had a dream last night. About her. Ethan's stomach dropped. Your mom. Leo didn't answer, just kept staring upward. It felt real, he whispered finally. Like she was here. Ethan pulled his son close, his mind racing. It was just a dream, he said, but the words felt hollow. The past was stirring, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. By Friday, the unease had settled into Ethan's bones. He was repairing a fence when his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He answered, expecting a supplier, but there was only silence, then a faint click. He stared at the screen, his heart thudding. Probably a wrong number, he told himself, but the call felt like a shadow passing over. Later, as he drove into town for supplies, he noticed a silver car in his rearview mirror, lingering just a bit too long. When he turned onto a side road, it vanished, but the hairs on his neck stood up. He was being paranoid, wasn't he? Back at the Haven, Eleanor caught him pacing in the kitchen. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, setting a kettle on the stove. Maybe I have, Ethan muttered, then sighed. Just weird stuff. A call, a car, Maya's lullaby. It's probably nothing. Eleanor poured tea, her eyes sharp. The world has a way of nudging us when it's time to face something. You've built a good life here, Ethan. Whatever's coming, you're stronger than it. He wanted to believe her, but as he glanced out the window, he swore he saw a figure in the distance, just beyond the tree line. When he blinked, it was gone. The Haven was still his sanctuary, but for the first time, it felt like the walls were closing in. The morning air at the Haven was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and blooming lavender. Ethan was in the barn, sorting through a crate of old tools, when he found it, a small, dusty envelope tucked between a hammer and a rusted wrench. His name was scrawled on it in Clara's looping handwriting, unmistakable even after 7 years. His hands froze, the world narrowing to the yellowed paper in his grip. He tore it open, heart pounding. Inside was a single sheet, folded tightly, dated a month after Clara left. Ethan, I'm sorry. I had to go. You're stronger than you know. Take care of them. No signature, just those words, stark and cold. A wave of old pain crashed over him, her absence, the nights he'd stayed up wondering why, the way he'd had to explain to 3 small faces that Mommy wasn't coming back. Dad. Finn's voice snapped him out of it. The 10-year-old stood in the barn doorway, holding a bucket of chicken feed. You okay? You look weird. Ethan shoved the note into his pocket, forcing a smile. Yeah, just found some junk. You feeding the chickens or just standing there? Finn grinned, oblivious to the storm in his father's chest. I'm supervising the chickens. Thor's eating all the feed again. Go supervise closer, Ethan said, managing a chuckle. But as Finn scampered off, the note burned against his thigh. Why was it here now? Had Eleanor kept it hidden? Or had Clara left it behind, a final taunt? That afternoon, Ethan sat alone in the farmhouse's attic, surrounded by boxes of forgotten things. He'd told himself he was organizing, but really, he was searching, for answers, for closure. He found an old photo frame, the glass cracked, showing a younger Ethan and Clara at a beach, Leo a toddler in her arms. Her auburn hair caught the sunlight, her smile wide but distant, even then. He hadn't noticed that distance before. You kept that. Leo's voice startled him. The 14-year-old stood at the attic stairs, his expression unreadable. Didn't mean to, Ethan said, setting the frame down. Just sorting through stuff. Leo's jaw tightened. Why do you still have her things? She's gone. Ethan stood, crossing to his son. I know, Leo. I'm not trying to bring her back. I just found it. Leo looked away, his voice low. I saw her in my dream again last night. She was standing by the barn, watching us. Ethan's stomach twisted. It's just a dream, son. Is it? Leo's eyes met his, sharp with something like fear. What if she's coming back? The question hung in the air, heavy and unanswered. Ethan wanted to reassure him, but the note in his pocket felt like a warning. Leo had always been the quiet one, the observer who carried more than he let on. At breakfast the next day, he barely touched his pancakes, his eyes fixed on the table. Maya chattered about a butterfly she'd seen, and Finn argued with her about whether it was a monarch or not, but Leo was a ghost at the table, lost in his thoughts. Ethan watched him, worry gnawing at his gut. After breakfast, he found Leo in the orchard, sketching in his notebook, a habit he'd picked up from Olivia. The page showed a shadowy figure by a tree, the lines jagged and urgent. "Nice drawing," Ethan said, sitting beside him on the grass. "Want to talk about it?" Leo's pencil stopped. "It's nothing. Doesn't look like nothing." Ethan kept his tone gentle. "You've been quiet since the dream stuff. What's going on?" Leo hesitated, then closed the notebook. "I remember her, Dad. More than Finn or Maya. I remember how she'd sing to us, how she'd laugh. And then she just left." His voice cracked. "What if she comes back and messes everything up? You, Olivia, the Haven. It's good now." Ethan's heart ached. He pulled Leo into a hug, feeling the boy's tension. "Nobody's going to mess this up, okay? You, Finn, Maya, you're my world. Olivia's part of that now. Nobody can take that away." Leo nodded against his shoulder, but his silence spoke louder than words. Ethan knew his son was carrying a weight he couldn't fully share, not yet. That evening, Leo slipped away to the barn, where he kept a small box hidden under a loose floorboard. Inside was a locket, a gift from Clara when he was 6. He hadn't told anyone he'd kept it. Opening it, he stared at the tiny photo of his mother, her eyes hauntingly familiar. He snapped it shut, his hands shaking. "Stay away," he whispered, as if she could hear him. The Haven was quiet that night, the kind of quiet that felt like the world was holding its breath. Ethan sat at the kitchen table, his laptop open, catching up on emails about crop deliveries. The kids were asleep, and Olivia was at her own cabin, giving him space after sensing his distraction. A new email popped up, the sender a string of random numbers. No subject. He clicked, expecting spam. Instead, a single link loaded a web page, an old social media profile, abandoned years ago. Clara's face stared back at him, her auburn hair shorter, her smile forced. The last post was from 6 years ago, a cryptic quote about second chances. Below it, a new comment, posted that day, "See you soon." Ethan's blood ran cold. He closed the laptop, his breath shallow. Was this a prank? A hack? Or was Clara really out there, reaching for him? He checked the doors, the windows, a primal instinct kicking in. The Haven felt less like a sanctuary now and more like a stage, waiting for an uninvited guest. He didn't sleep that night, the email's words looping in his mind. "See you soon." It wasn't just a message, it was a promise, one he wasn't ready to face. The next morning, Ethan found Eleanor in the greenhouse, tending to her herbs. The glass walls were fogged with condensation, giving the space an otherworldly glow. She didn't look up as he entered, but her voice was steady. "You've got that look again, Ethan. Like a man carrying the world." He sank onto a stool, the note from Clara still in his pocket, the email still burning in his mind. "I don't know what's happening, Eleanor. Things keep showing up." A note from Clara, an email with her picture. "Leo's having dreams. It's like she's haunting us." Eleanor set down her shears, her eyes piercing. "The past doesn't haunt, Ethan. It teaches. Sometimes it demands you face it before you can move on." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "Face what? She left us. She broke us. Why would she come back now?" Eleanor poured tea from a thermos, sliding a cup toward him. "Maybe she's not back for you. Maybe it's for her own reasons. Or maybe it's not her at all, just the echo of what she left behind. Either way, you've built something strong here. You, the kids, Olivia, this place, it's yours. Don't let a ghost take that from you." Her words were a lifeline, but they didn't erase the fear. What if she wants the kids? What if she tries to? "Then you fight," Eleanor interrupted, her voice firm. "Not with anger, but with love. You show them what you've made here. That's your strength." Ethan sipped the tea, the warmth grounding him. "You always know what to say." She smiled, but it was tinged with something knowing. "I've lived long enough to see patterns, Ethan. The past always knocks before it enters. Be ready when it does." As he left the greenhouse, the weight of her words settled over him. He glanced at the fields, where Finn and Maya were playing tag, their laughter a stark contrast to the storm in his heart. He had to protect this, whatever it took. It was late afternoon when the knock came. Ethan was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. The kids sprawled in the living room with a board game. Olivia was due to join them soon, her presence a comfort Ethan clung to. The knock was soft at first, almost lost in the clatter of Finn's exaggerated groans over losing at checkers. Ethan froze, knife in hand. Another knock, sharper this time. His pulse quickened. He set the knife down, wiping his hands on a towel, and crossed to the door. The kids didn't notice, but Eleanor, sitting by the window with a book, looked up, her eyes narrowing. He opened the door, and the world tilted. Clara stood there, her auburn hair tied back, her face older but unmistakable. She wore a faded denim jacket, her hands stuffed in her pockets, her eyes searching his. "Ethan," she said, her voice soft but steady. I needed to see you." The room spun. He gripped the doorframe, his voice gone. Behind him, Maya's laughter stopped, and Finn whispered, "Who's that?" Leo stood, his face pale, the locket hidden in his pocket suddenly heavy. Ethan stared at Clara, the woman who'd shattered his world and now stood on his doorstep, threatening to do it again. Her eyes held a mix of regret and something else, something he couldn't read. The haven, his sanctuary, felt like it was crumbling beneath him. The air in the farmhouse felt thick, as if time itself had paused. Clara stood just inside the doorway, her denim jacket slightly too big for her now thin frame, her auburn hair catching the dim light of the kitchen. Ethan's hand still gripped the doorframe, his knuckles white, his voice lost somewhere in the shock of seeing her. Behind him, the children froze, Finn clutching a checker piece, Maya wide-eyed, and Leo standing rigid, his fists clenched. "Ethan," Clara said again, softer, her eyes flickering with something like regret. "Can we talk?" Ethan's mouth opened, but no words came. He felt the weight of 7 years, her abandonment, the sleepless nights, the questions he'd buried to keep his kids safe. Now she was here, real and uninvited, threatening the life he'd built. Eleanor cleared her throat, rising from her chair. "Kids, let's give your dad a moment. Come help me in the garden." Maya hesitated, her gaze darting between Clara and Ethan. "Is that?" she whispered, but Eleanor gently ushered her out, Finn trailing reluctantly. Leo lingered, his eyes locked on Clara, a storm brewing in his expression. "Leo," Eleanor said firmly, and he followed, casting one last glance back. Alone now, Ethan faced Clara. "What are you doing here?" His voice was low, raw, barely controlled. Clara shifted, her hands twisting in her pockets. "I know this is sudden. I didn't know how else to do this. I needed to see you. To see them. Them." Ethan's voice sharpened. "You left them, Clara. You left us. 7 years, not a word, and now you just show up." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. "I wasn't ready then. I was broken. I thought you'd be better off without me." "Better off?" Ethan laughed, a bitter sound. "Do you know what it was like? Explaining to a 6-year-old why his mom vanished? Holding Maya when she cried for you? You don't get to walk back in like nothing happened." Clara flinched, but her voice stayed steady. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Ethan. I just want a chance to know them. To make things right." He stared at her, searching for the woman he'd once loved. She was different, older, weary, but there was something else in her eyes, something he couldn't place. "Why now?" he asked, his voice breaking. "What do you want?" She opened her mouth, then closed it, as if the answer was too heavy to speak. "Can I at least see them? Just for a moment?" Ethan's chest tightened. Every instinct screamed to send her away, to protect his kids from this disruption. But Maya's curious gaze, Finn's confusion, and Leo's silent anger echoed in his mind. He didn't answer, just turned and walked to the window, staring out at the fields where his children were his world. Clara stood behind him, a ghost he couldn't outrun. Olivia arrived at the farmhouse just as the sun dipped below the horizon, her usual warmth dimmed by the tension she sensed the moment she stepped inside. Ethan was at the kitchen table, head in his hands, the air heavy with unspoken words. Clara was gone. Eleanor had insisted she leave for the night, giving Ethan space to think. "Ethan." Olivia's voice was soft as she sat beside him, her hand resting on his arm. What happened? He looked up, his hazel eyes clouded with exhaustion. She's back, Liv. Clara. She was here, standing in my kitchen, like she never left. Olivia's breath caught, but she kept her voice steady. What did she say? She wants to see the kids. Says she's sorry, that she was broken when she left. He shook his head, his voice bitter. I don't even know if I believe her. Olivia squeezed his arm, her touch grounding. You don't have to decide anything tonight. You've built something incredible here. For you, for the kids. She can't just walk in and take that. Ethan met her gaze, gratitude mingling with fear. What if she tries? What if the kids want her back? Then you'll handle it, Olivia said firmly. You're their rock, Ethan. They know you're here, always. And I'm here too if you'll let me be. He reached for her hand, holding it tightly. I don't know what I'd do without you. She smiled, a quiet strength in her eyes. You'd be fine. But you don't have to. She leaned in, resting her forehead against his. We'll figure this out together. Outside, the kids were with Eleanor, their voices muted. Olivia glanced toward the window, then back at Ethan. Do they know who she is? Leo does, Ethan said, his voice heavy. Finn and Maya, they're confused. Maya's too young to remember much, but she's curious. Finn's just Finn. And Leo's carrying something I can't reach. Olivia nodded. Let them feel what they need to feel. But don't let her make you doubt what you've built. This is your home, Ethan. Yours and theirs. Her words were a lifeline, pulling him back from the edge. But as they sat in silence, the shadow of Clara's return loomed, a question mark over their fragile peace. The next morning, the farmhouse was a tangle of emotions. Ethan gathered the kids in the living room, the old couch sagging under their weight. Maya curled up beside him, clutching a stuffed rabbit, while Finn fidgeted, bouncing his knee. Leo sat apart, his arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the floor. Ethan took a deep breath. I need to talk to you about the woman who was here yesterday. That was your mom. Clara. Maya's eyes widened. My mom? Like my real mom? Ethan nodded, his throat tight. Yeah, bug. She's been gone a long time, but she came back to talk. Finn frowned, his voice sharp. Why now? Where's she been? I don't know all the answers, Ethan admitted. She says she wants to see you, to know you. But I need to know how you feel about that. Maya tilted her head, curious. Is she nice? Will she stay? Ethan's heart ached at her innocence. I don't know yet, Maya. We're figuring it out. Finn scoffed. She left us. Why should we care? Leo's silence was louder than Finn's outburst. Ethan turned to him. Leo. What do you think? Leo's jaw clenched, his voice low. She doesn't get to just come back. Not after what she did. Ethan nodded, respecting his son's anger. You don't have to decide anything now. I just want you to know I'm here, and nothing changes how much I love you. Okay. Maya crawled into his lap, nodding. Finn shrugged, but his eyes were troubled. Leo stood abruptly, muttering, I'm going to the barn, and left before Ethan could stop him. Later, Maya found Leo in the barn, sketching furiously. Leo, are you mad at Mom? She asked, her voice small. Leo's pencil paused. I'm not mad. I just don't trust her. Maya hugged her rabbit tighter. But what if she's nice now? Leo looked at her, his expression softening. Maybe she is, Maya. But we've got Dad and Olivia. We don't need her. Maya nodded, but her eyes lingered on Leo's sketch, a shadowy figure by the barn, the same one from his dreams. The question of Clara hung over them, unanswered. Clara returned the next day, this time meeting Ethan at a neutral spot, a bench by the orchard, away from the kids. She looked nervous, her fingers twisting a silver ring on her thumb. Ethan sat across from her, his posture stiff, his eyes searching her face for answers. I know I don't deserve a second chance, Clara began, her voice steady but rehearsed. But I've changed, Ethan. I've been through things. Therapy, rehab. I'm not the person I was. Ethan's jaw tightened. You think that erases 7 years? You didn't just leave me, Clara. You left them. Leo was 6, Finn was 3, Maya was a baby. They needed you. Her eyes glistened, but she held his gaze. I was drowning, Ethan. I couldn't be a mother, not then. I was a mess, depression, anxiety, things I didn't understand. I thought you'd all be better without me. And now, he asked, his voice cold. What do you want? To play mom again? To take them? Clara shook her head quickly. No, I don't want to take them. I just want to know them. To be part of their lives, even a little. Ethan leaned forward, his voice low. Why should I trust you? You show up out of nowhere, after all this time. What's really going on? For a moment, her composure slipped, a flicker of something in her eyes, guilt or calculation. She reached into her bag, pulling out a small photo of the kids, clearly taken recently from a distance. I've been watching, she admitted. Not to hurt you. Just to see them. Ethan's blood ran cold. You've been watching us? Not like that, she said quickly. I needed to know they were okay. He stood, anger flaring. You don't get to spy on us and call it care. You want to know them. You earn it. But I don't trust you, Clara. Not yet. She nodded, tears spilling over. I'll do whatever it takes, Ethan. I swear. He walked away, the photo burning in his mind. Her words sounded sincere, but that flicker in her eyes lingered, a hint of something hidden. That night, Ethan and Clara met again, this time in the farmhouse's living room, the kids upstairs with Olivia. Eleanor sat nearby, a silent observer, her presence a steady anchor. Ethan needed answers, and he wasn't letting Clara leave without them. Tell me the truth, he said, his voice firm. Why did you leave? No half answers. Clara took a shaky breath, her hands clasped tightly. I was lost. After Maya was born, I fell apart. Postpartum depression, but I didn't know what it was then. I felt like I was failing you, failing them. I started drinking, hiding it. One night, I just left. I thought you'd be better off. Ethan's anger softened, but only slightly. You could have told me. I would have helped. I know, she whispered. But I was ashamed. I ended up in a bad place, bad people, bad choices. It took years to climb out. I got clean, got help. I'm here because I want to make it right. He studied her, torn between pity and distrust. And if I say no? If I tell you to leave and never come back? Clara's face crumpled, but she nodded. I'd go. But I'd keep hoping you'd change your mind. They're my kids too, Ethan. They're my kids, he snapped, then softened. I raised them. I dried their tears. I built this life for them. You don't get to claim them now. Eleanor spoke up, her voice calm but firm. Ethan, she's not asking to take them. She's asking for a chance. You don't have to give it, but you do have to decide. Ethan looked at Clara, then upstairs, where his kids were. He thought of Leo's anger, Finn's confusion, Maya's curiosity. He thought of Olivia, steady and loving. I need time, he said finally. And you need to prove you mean it. No more secrets, Clara. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. No more secrets. But as Ethan watched her leave, the flicker in her eyes haunted him. He had a choice to make, and the wrong one could shatter everything. The morning after his confrontation with Clara, Ethan stood in the fields of the haven, the dew-soaked grass brushing his boots. The air was heavy with the scent of earth and promise, but his heart was heavier still. Clara's words echoed in his mind, her plea for a chance, her claim to the children, but so did Leo's anger, Finn's confusion, and Maya's innocent hope. He knew what he had to do. Clara arrived at noon, as agreed, her expression a mix of hope and trepidation. They met in the shade of the orchard, the same bench where she'd revealed her secret watching. Ethan's face was set, his hazel eyes unyielding. I've thought about it, he began, his voice steady but kind. I've thought about you, about what you're asking. And I can't let you back into their lives. Not yet, maybe not ever. Clara's breath hitched, but she stayed silent, waiting. You hurt them, Clara, he continued. You hurt me. I don't know if you're different now, and maybe you are, but I can't risk their hearts to find out. They're happy here. They're safe. They have me, Olivia, Eleanor, this place. That's their family. Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. I understand. I hoped, but I understand. Ethan softened, just slightly. I'm not saying never. If you're serious about being better, prove it. Stay clean, stay honest. Write to them, maybe, in time. But you don't get to walk back in and claim a place you left behind. She looked down, twisting the silver ring on her thumb. Can I at least say goodbye to them? Ethan hesitated, then nodded. Briefly. And I'll be there. They walked to the farmhouse, where the kids were waiting with Olivia. Maya clutched her stuffed rabbit, Finn shifted uncomfortably, and Leo stood with his arms crossed, his gaze hard. Clara knelt to their level, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry I wasn't here for you, she said. I wasn't strong enough then, but I'm trying to be now. I love you, even if I haven't shown it right. I hope, maybe one day, you'll want to know me. Maya tilted her head, curious but shy. Will you come back? Clara smiled through tears. Only if you want me to, sweetheart. Finn shrugged, his voice gruff. Okay. Leo said nothing, his eyes fixed on the floor. Clara reached out, but he stepped back, and she let her hand fall. Ethan watched, his heart aching but resolute. When Clara stood to leave, he walked her to her car. Take care of yourself, Clara, he said. Mean it this time. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I will. As her car disappeared down the dirt road, Ethan felt a weight lift, but the scars remained. He turned back to the farmhouse, where his family, his real family, waited. The days following Clara's departure were quiet, but not empty. The haven hummed with its usual rhythm, goats bleating, residents laughing over shared meals, the kids running through the fields. But there was a new undercurrent, a need to process what had happened. Ethan gathered the kids that evening on the porch, the stars bright above. Olivia sat beside him, her presence a steady comfort. I want to talk about your mom, Ethan said, his voice gentle. About how you're feeling. Maya nestled against him, her rabbit in her lap. She seemed sad. Is she gone forever? Ethan brushed a strand of hair from her face. Not forever, Bug. She's trying to be better. If you want to know her one day, we'll figure it out together. But you don't have to decide now. Finn kicked at a porch board. I don't get why she came back. We're fine without her. You are, Ethan agreed. But sometimes people need to fix their mistakes. It doesn't mean we have to let them in. Leo, sitting on the steps, finally spoke. I don't want her back. Not now, maybe not ever. She doesn't get to hurt us again. Ethan's heart broke at the pain in his son's voice. He moved to sit beside Leo, resting a hand on his shoulder. You're right to feel that way, Leo. You don't have to forgive her. But if you're carrying that anger, let me help you carry it, okay? Leo nodded, his eyes glistening. Okay, Dad. Olivia spoke up, her voice warm. You're all so strong. Whatever happens, you've got each other, and you've got this place. That's what matters. Maya crawled into Olivia's lap, and Finn leaned against her. Leo stayed close to Ethan, but his posture softened. The moment wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, a family choosing to heal, to move forward together. That night, Leo slipped into the barn, pulling out the locket he'd hidden. He opened it, staring at Clara's photo, then closed it and set it in the box under the floorboard. Goodbye, he whispered, and for the first time, he felt lighter. Weeks passed, and the haven began to feel like itself again. The kids threw themselves into their routines, Finn chasing goats, Maya painting with Olivia, Leo sketching more freely, his lines less jagged. Ethan worked the fields, his hands steady in the soil, his heart slowly mending. One afternoon, he and Olivia sat by the creek that ran through the property, the water glinting in the sunlight. You were my rock through this, Ethan said, taking her hand. I don't know how to thank you. Olivia smiled, her brown eyes warm. You don't have to. I love you, Ethan. I love those kids. I'm here because I want to be. He leaned in, kissing her softly. "I love you too. And I'm ready, for us, for whatever's next." She laughed, nudging him. "Good. Because Finn's already planning our wedding." Ethan groaned, but his grin betrayed him. That kid. Later, they gathered the kids for a family meeting. Ethan wanted to check in, to ensure they were healing. "How's everyone doing?" he asked, passing around a plate of Eleanor's cookies. Maya munched happily. "I painted a unicorn today. Olivia says it's my best yet." "It is," Olivia said, winking. Finn shrugged, but his smile was genuine. "I'm okay. Just don't want any more surprises." Ethan nodded. "No surprises. Just us, moving forward." Leo hesitated, then spoke. "I'm good, Dad. I was mad, but I like what we have here. I don't need her." Ethan reached over, squeezing his son's hand. "I'm proud of you, Leo. All of you." The haven felt whole again, its magic restored. The kids' laughter echoed through the fields, and Ethan knew they'd weathered the storm together. Eleanor called Ethan and Olivia to the greenhouse one crisp morning, her silver hair glowing in the soft light. The air smelled of basil and thyme, and her eyes held a quiet resolve. "I've been thinking," she said, setting down her shears. "The haven's been my life, but I'm not getting any younger. It's time to pass the torch." Ethan frowned, concerned. "You're not leaving, are you?" She chuckled. "Not yet. But I want you two to take on more. You've made this place a home, Ethan, for your kids and everyone else. Olivia, you've brought light to it. I trust you to carry it forward." Olivia's eyes widened. "Eleanor, that's huge." "It's right," Eleanor said firmly. "The haven's about second chances. You're proof of that. I'll still be here, meddling and making tea, but it's your turn to lead." Ethan felt a swell of pride and responsibility. "We won't let you down," he said. Eleanor smiled, her eyes twinkling. "I know you won't. Now, go tell those kids. They'll want to celebrate." That evening, the residents gathered for a bonfire, a tradition at the haven. Ethan stood, Olivia at his side, and shared Eleanor's decision. Cheers erupted and Finn hooped, "Dad's the boss now." Maya danced around, and Leo gave a rare, full smile. Eleanor raised a glass of lemonade. "To the haven, and to the family we choose." The crowd echoed her toast, and Ethan felt the weight of the moment, a legacy entrusted to him, a future he'd build with Olivia and the kids. The haven was more than a place, it was their heart. 5 years later, the haven had grown. New cabins dotted the fields, housing more families seeking refuge. The barn now held art classes and community workshops, and the vegetable patches had doubled in size. Ethan, now 43, stood taller, his lines softened by contentment. Olivia, his wife, laughed beside him, her ring catching the sunlight as she directed a group of kids planting seedlings. Leo, now 19, was studying environmental science at a nearby college but returned often, helping with the haven's sustainability projects. Finn, 15, was still the energetic troublemaker, leading goat races and charming new residents. Maya, 11, had become an artist, her paintings decorating the farmhouse, each one a burst of color and hope. One evening, they gathered for a community dinner, the tables laden with fresh bread, roasted vegetables, and Eleanor's famous pie. Residents shared stories, their voices mingling with laughter and the crackle of a bonfire. Ethan stood, raising a glass. "When we came here, we were broken," he said, his voice steady. "This place, you all, gave us a second chance. We've faced hard things, but we're stronger for it. Here's to the haven, to love, to family, to never giving up." The crowd cheered, and Olivia squeezed his hand. Maya ran up, hugging them both, while Finn shouted, "Speech, speech!" Leo rolled his eyes but grinned, joining the embrace. Later, as the stars emerged, Ethan stood by the creek, Olivia at his side. "We did it," she said softly. "We built something unshattered." He kissed her forehead, the kids' laughter echoing behind them. The haven was their home, their legacy, proof that love and community could heal any wound. The past had knocked, but they'd answered with strength, and their future shone bright. The end.